Thomas Edison was born in 1847 in Milan, Ohio, but grew up in Port Huron, Michigan, after the family moved there in 1854. Edison was taught reading, writing, and arithmetic by his mother, who used to be a schoolteacher. He attended school for only a few months. However, one biographer described him as a very curious child who learned most things by reading on his own. As a young boy, he became fascinated with technology and spent hours working on experiments at home. Edison began having hearing problems at age 12. He was deaf in one ear and could barely hear in the other. It was said that he would clamp his teeth into the wood of a piano to hear the music. Edison later said that this disability allowed him to focus on inventions more and avoid distractions. Edison began his career selling newspapers, candy, and vegetables. He made $50 a week, which he used for his electrical and chemical experiments. In 1866, at the age of 19, Edison moved to Louisville, Kentucky, where he got a job at Western Union working for the Associated Press Bureau Newswire. Edison requested the night shift, which allowed him to spend most of his time reading and conducting experiments. One of these experiments cost him his job. He was experimenting with battery acid when it spilled and went through the floorboards onto his boss's desk. The next morning, he was fired. After this, Edison was involved in multiple projects and partnerships dealing with the kinetoscope. In October 1869, Edison formed with Franklin L. Pope and James Ashley to create the organization Pope, Edison & Co. During this time, they made many upgrades to the telegraph. Edison opened a new laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey in 1876. The factory would later be called the Invention Factory because they made many new inventions in the factory. While the telegraph was invented in the 1830s and 1840s, Edison developed a superior system in which a telegraph receiver utilized a metal stylus to mark chemically treated paper, which was run through a typewriter-like device. It made it possible to record up to 1,000 words a minute. Alexander Bell patented the telephone in 1876, but Edison found a way to improve Bell's transmitter, which allowed phones to be further apart. Edison used a battery to provide current on the phone line and to control its strength by using carbon to alter the resistance. He did this by making a transmitter in which a lampback was placed behind the diaphragm. And when people spoke into the phone, the sound waves moved to the diaphragm and the pressure on the lampblack changed. Edison is credited with inventing the first incandescent light bulb in 1879. His inventions also include the electric pen, dictaphone, mimeograph machine, an alkaline storage battery, an electric vote recorder, and an electric railway. Edison was one of the first inventors to apply the principles of mass production and large-scale teamwork to the process of invention, building a large research lab with many employees. Edison's research laboratory in Menlo Park was one of the first industrial labs in the U.S. Edison was also an astute businessman, and he formed the Edison Manufacturing Company in 1887 to produce and sell his inventions. The phonograph cylinder was an early form of analog sound recording and reproduction developed by Thomas Edison in the late 1890s. It consisted of a cylindrical object made of a soft material, such as wax or celluloid, that was contented with a metal layer. A stylus or recording needle was used to carve grooves into the cylinder's surface, which represented the sound of a musical or spoken performance. In the late 1880s, Edison's lab began working on a technology that does for the eye what the phonograph does for the ear. The initial experiments of the kinetograph were based on Edison's conception of the phonograph cylinder. Assistant William Dickinson was given the task of inventing the device in June 1889. The kinetoscope was completed by 1892. The kinetoscope was an early motion picture exhibition device that allowed individuals to view short, looping films through a peephole viewer. Edison's films were usually short, lasting between 1 to 5 minutes. Thomas Edison's early motion picture viewings were positive and enthusiastic. When the kinetoscope was first demonstrated in public in 1894, it was met with wonder and excitement as people had never seen moving images before. Most early examples were actualities showing famous people, news events, disasters, people at work, new modes of travel, technology, scenic views, exposition, and other leisure activities. A constant flow of new film subjects was needed to keep the new invention popular, so a motion picture production studio was built at West Orange in December 1892. This studio was called the Black Maria. It was made out of tar, and it could rotate 360 degrees to get the most out of the sun. It also had a retractable roof to allow for light. This place was the first motion picture studio, so it gave Edison a head start on becoming the most popular filmmaker. These early films were directed by a man named William Dixon. Dixon and his team registered for the first film for copyright. The film shows a man sneezing and is only 6 seconds long. Dixon and his team went on to make more famous short films and invented techniques used in other famous films. Meanwhile, other businesses were rising in the filmmaking industry. While these businesses grew, the popularity of motion pictures rose at a consistent rate, up until World War II. After this, the motion picture industry slowed dramatically because TVs became more available in American homes. After this huge hit, directors had to take a different approach to filmmaking. Film producers started making films 3D and even released aromas into the air to make it seem like you were in the movie. These changes made the viewer have an experience that they couldn't experience with their television. So the film industry began to rise again. The value of the entertainment and media market worldwide was $2.51 trillion in 2022. There are now more advanced motion picture devices, such as laser projectors, which provide even sharper images. The growth of motion pictures has led to the development of impressive modern movie theaters. Today's theaters, like Imagine Egan, have 15 projectors that are all run automatically. The director comes in once a week to set the schedule for all the projectors. The only thing the attendant has to do is turn the machines off at night and on the next morning. The theaters make double the amount of money that the entire motion picture industry of the US and UK did in 1910. It all began with Thomas Edison's kinetoscope, allowing individuals to view short looping films through a peephole viewer. The kinetoscope was commercially successful and sparked widespread interest in the motion picture, which led to the development of more advanced motion picture devices and the growth of motion pictures onto a large screen, which allowed for a shared viewing experience and the development of modern movie theaters today.
Where will we go from here?